Hey, we're live.
Hello, everybody. This is Tim and Rob, and perhaps some other people are going to jump in. I'm not sure. I posted the link in the Facebook group. But today we're going to talk about some random assortment of topics. Can't talk forever because I have a smaller window of time to do something today, but I wanted to put out a video talking to another YouTuber and on May 4th, which has sort of been, as tradition has laid down before us, Community Day for our little collaboration of YouTube channels. So, Rob, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. I'm Rob Davis. I've had a channel going as the Swamper for quite some time. I've actually been on YouTube since like 2006, but I only got a webcam last year. And I got a cheap webcam, and lately I've been trying to put out a video, but my audio and video haven't been syncing up. So that's why. It's not because I don't have ideas. I just I've deleted so many videos.
Yeah, I always have to run my videos through a little program, even if it's just one take, just to make sure that the audio and video, I just use a little like Windows Media Player, Windows Media Movie Maker, I think that's the name of it.
Yeah, that's what I use.
Yeah, I don't know, for some reason that fixes all my problems.
So. I think it's my crappy webcam.
So what do you want to talk about first, Rob? You talk about,
let's talk about the power gaming one, because, and this isn't about power gaming. I'm not going to talk about power gaming, but I just want to talk about some people's reactions to some of the posts in the YouTube threads. I've been a member, and I'm sure lots of the viewers out there, lots of these have been members of other forums and stuff like that, and ours is really, really nice. I've never seen anyone called names or insulted or you suck, you effing moron, and all these other stuff, which is common on other forums. Someone just says, I don't like this, and other people are getting all thin-skinned and feel like it's personal attack. It's like, whoa, I like 4E D&D. You're not going to find a lot of support for that online, but I'm not going to take it as a personal offense to me if someone says 4E sucks. All right, well, you don't like the system, but, it's not an insult against me. So I just think people need to be a little bit more thick-skinned, particularly on the Internet. Look at where their comment is directed and react accordingly.
Yeah, your comments, I think, are right on the money. The Facebook group is probably one of the best and friendliest places that I know of. I think we all sort of try to go for that goal, though. I think since its inception, people have tried to keep it. So it's like, okay, guys, calm down a little bit. I think it has something to do with our YouTube channels too. Like we kind of know the people more. I think it's not as anonymous. You have a face and a voice and a personality and body language and facial expressions and all that kind of stuff to go along with the person's comment. And I think sometimes that can help you translate text and add a little bit more to it, so people don't take it like too far out of context. And, I don't know. And I do try to. Sometimes I get arrows slung my way for the way I run the group. I really try to do the best I can. Sometimes I might not make the best decisions. I don't know, but I just try to keep it a friendly place and a place where people aren't afraid to share their opinions and talk about things. And I always say, disagree all you want. That's cool. I like to see a variety of viewpoints and things to talk about, because that makes things interesting. Just try not to make personal attacks and call people an asshole for whatever opinion they have. It's just that they have their opinion. Let's just talk about our differences and try to stay calm and level-headed. I think for the most part, like 99% of the time, that works. We have little speed bumps here and there, but it's an internet group. What do you expect?
Yeah, quite right. And we're all passionate about our hobby. You wouldn't be part of a group if you weren't passionate about the hobby. So I can understand getting a little defensive. But as I said, defend your argument and don't take it personal. On the upside, first of all, Tim, you do a fantastic job monitoring. It's a very difficult job because you're constantly having to make calls. Is this something where I need to step in, or should I just be quiet here? I think you walk the line fabulously.
Yeah, because sometimes I think, should I just leave it like a Wild West town, or it's like, pew, 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 people just flinging stuff back and forth and just, kind of like keeping hands off, and then sometimes, I feel, maybe I was too heavy-handed there or something. But yeah, I try to walk the line, I try to find some happy medium of let's keep this friendly, and at the same time I don't want to be like a mommy state, where it's like, oh god, here comes Tim. Watch what you're saying, guys.
But
yeah,
I think you'd be great.
With the thin skin thing, it's very true. I mean, I'll be honest. There have been times in the past where it's like I've been like upset, or I don't know if offended is the right word, but my feelings got hurt in a few instances, and then I kind of had to step back and say, okay, this is the internet. You don't really know any of these people. Yes, they've kind of come into my life because like I said, the body language, facial expressions, you feel like you know the person. I mean, I wouldn't be afraid to call people my friends that I interact with on YouTube, especially the ones that I've interacted with for years. So there's something about that YouTube element that I think makes the interaction a little bit more special. Like even for instance, like this conversation, I think we've only had literally one other computer screen to computer screen talk, and I don't feel any sort of hesitation or weirdness. It's like we just went right into a discussion, and I think that's because of the YouTube element. I don't know what to call it.
No, I think you're absolutely right. When you watch someone else's videos, and these are not characters we're putting on. We're doing videos. I'm sure a few do. Andrew did to some degree. Matthew does sometimes. But over a number of videos, you can get a gist of the person's real personality. You know what I mean? Like how they're really feeling. So that when we have these conversations, it's kind of like you know the person. Like if I were to go right now and sit down at a gaming table with 5 total strangers, that would be one thing. But if I was to go sit down at a table of 5 YouTube Brigaders whom I never met but had watched their videos, I would feel very comfortable just sitting at that table because I'd feel already kind of comfortable with them and know them,
Yeah, the few times that I've met fellow YouTubers in real life, I've met Barnesy, Black Barnes, and I've met PH D&D in real life. Yeah, Kurt, and there was no hesitation. There was no weirdness. It was kind of like, oh, hey, how's it going? Let's sit down and eat, or hey, let's go chat for a while. So I mean, people might be thinking that's kind of strange to have that sort of relationship. And we always met in like public places and all that safety kind of stuff. But there was no like weirdness. It was like, oh, cool, I'm getting to meet you. There was more excitement. Like,
right.
Wow, you're taller than I expected, or Tim, you're a little bit heavier than I thought.
You look much shorter on the internet. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah. You already got that camaraderie. And, I was remarking today, I was just noticing today, being one of our anniversaries, that we're up to like 556, 557 people now or something like this. I joined about a year and a bit ago, and it was like 180-something. I remember when I first joined, every time someone joined, there would be a mention, oh, welcome so-and-so to the group. Now it's like 5 or 6 a day. It's like you can't keep up.
Yeah, I kind of learned early on that it was kind of hard to introduce every single person once it started getting the numbers that it did. I also noticed I started putting the links down for the Facebook group and the Vimeo group, and I think there's one other link I put down there, just in all my videos, just in case people watch my stuff and like, oh, okay, I want to interact with the community. Here's the links, and I think that also had some spam problems because I put those links down there. I think some more spam started coming, but I think it worked out good. There's as long as we pay attention, and the pretty girl's face with like no posts, and the thing was created just yesterday. That's an obvious spam account, but some of the other ones sneak in from time to time.
Yeah, someone posts a thread. Someone posts a thread selling hairbrushes or something like this. It's like, all right, goodbye. Yeah.
But I mean, getting back to your point about being thin-skinned, I think people kind of get. I've kind of noticed some channels where they get really upset, and I think at times they get so upset that they do rash things, things that they'll later regret, namely like deleting all their stuff or their channel, or I mean, I think people just need to calm down when they get in that kind of that I don't know, that rage or despair or whatever kind of emotion they're going through. Yeah, you sleep on it for a day or two, or don't post anything or comment for a week, and just give it a little bit of breather time. Because I think people, I mean, I've heard people say that they regret later on that they deleted all that content, all that effort, all that work that they put into this this free hobby that we're doing. and they sort of shake their head. And usually those are the people that start like 2 or 3 channels. they get upset. They delete stuff. They're like, damn, why did I do that? Why was I so hasty? I should have just calmed down.
Yeah, I'm with you. I never agree with people deleting their videos. I write a lot, and it's kind of like an author saying, "Oh, I wish I could have that book back, and I wish I could have that book back," and stuff like. Just let it happen. I mean, it was even if you made points that you no longer agree with, it's part of your journey. It's part of your progress. People can watch that and appreciate that your ideas changed and evolved over that time span. It's not a bad thing that you disagree with that necessarily, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed watching Samuel G. as an example start out as a brand fairly new role player, and you could literally just watch the light bulbs go off in his head as time went on. The progression was there. It was cool to see. It kind of made me think, what would my videos have been when I was just starting out, like 8 or 9, if I would have done little videos here every once in a while, like how much I would have changed and how much I would have looked back and kind of appreciated all the mistakes and things that I was doing, why were you thinking that back then? But it's part of a process. We continue to grow and change as role players every day.
That's a really good point. The internet is great because these days the Google knows everything. You can find all the information in the world at your fingertips. And that's true even for something like our hobby, where when I started in 1977, 78, I struggled making all kinds of dumb mistakes, writing adventures exactly like modules with box text and utterly hard railroaded and stuff like that, right? I mean, if I had access to information base like the internet, I like to think that my learning progression would have been much shorter. You know what I mean? I would have reached pinnacles much sooner. It would have taken me 10 years to figure, there's a better way to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm very envious of today's RPG enthusiasts that are just starting out. They have so many tools and options and things that we just didn't have back when. And I just picture myself having one book, maybe like an encyclopedia, and that was pretty much all the sources I had, unless I went to the library and
that's it. Yeah.
Talking about Tolkien or something. I don't know. There's a few times I got extra sources, but most of the stuff was just right out of my own head, and all of the mistakes I made were just mistakes that I needed to make to learn. Trial and error just to figure things out. And I think today, people start out, they go to the internet. Oh, here's some guy talking about RPGs. I bought this Pathfinder beginner box set. Oh, this guy's talking about that. Oh, wow, he said this, and maybe I should run it that way. And they just have, I don't know, a good starting block, like a track runner. The gun goes off, and they got a good firm push. All these videos and all this online information on blogs and so forth to use to make their game better that we never had. So.
Yeah, quite right. The best way to learn anything, in my opinion, is from an expert. Learn from an expert, then practice what you've learned, right? In my day, searching the internet was the equivalent of going to the library and using the Dewey Decimal System to go through little white cards. 793 to 797. Where is that? You know what I'm talking about.
Yep. I've been there. I had a few little small libraries that I went to. I was always excited to go look at the Tolkien books. That was most of my. Look, there's a whole book about illustrations about Tolkien. Holy crap! I don't have this. I wish I could buy a book like this.
Yeah. And now. Now, like you say, you can go right to the internet, and there's experts giving you information. It's not just great for stuff you want to learn how to do, stuff you might be interested in trying to do. I'm interested in trying this new system, right? I remember watching one of your videos on Dogs in the Vineyard because I was interested in the game. I thought, I wonder what this game's like. So I read a little Wikipedia on it, and then I found a couple of reviews, including yours, and I watched them, and that gave me a much better impression of what it was like from someone who's actually played it, right? So you can make informed purchases too, things like that. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
and this is why we do videos, to help people.
RPGs tend to have this little need for someone to show you how some games work. Because I don't know why, but I don't know if it's the way games are written or what it is, but there's just some games that you need someone to walk with you. You need someone to hold your hand a little bit, no, you don't do it that way, you think it's worded. It's like this, and then okay, well that makes more sense now, and you understand. And I've watched a few videos like that, how does this game work? Let me go listen to like a live play or a review, and they're like, oh, okay, that's how you use the dice. Oh, I was thinking it was this other way, like this other game. And I think sometimes maybe even the fact that I know so many different games, sometimes it kind of jumbles things up in my head. Like I start comparing games to games that probably shouldn't be compared to each other. You know, I don't know. There's like too much knowledge up there sometimes.
There can be an advantage to that too, where you can borrow ideas from one system to place in another system. But I agree with your point. I mean, when I look at the very first Player's Handbook, not the very first, but the I guess it's the very first Player's Handbook, 1E D&D and the 1E Dungeon Master's Guide. I don't know how anyone figured out how to play just from reading those books. I don't know how 5 15-year-olds could sit down, read those books, and actually figure out how to play that game. I really don't. It amazes me that anyone ever figured it out. Right? It was always, I would watch a GM. Yeah.
I think what it just came down to is people just did the best they could. They took what was there as a foundation, and then they added whatever they thought needed to be added. You know, all the quote-unquote holes and little areas were vague or just in Galaxian prose that people didn't understand.
I think this is where a lot of house rules originally came from. Well, I don't really understand the rules, so I'm going to do it this way. You know, and that became the way. Then when they found out, it's like, I don't like the way they actually do it. I'm doing it my way.
I know I did that with Rollmaster when I was like 9 years old. I mean, I didn't know any better, but
wow, 9! Wow.
We bought Rollmaster because it was in the back of like an advertisement of Lord of the Rings adventure game, which is a very simple Lord of the Rings game if you haven't heard of it. But we bought all the Rollmaster books, and we just did the best we could. There were some complex rules we didn't understand. It's like, I think it works like this, and it didn't, but it works well enough for us to be able to play it for like 10 years. So we got through it.
It's one thing I would love to see more in role-playing books, and you've read way more than I have, is lots of examples. Concept, example, 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 concept, example, 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 and repeat that throughout the book. I think that's a good design structure.
Yeah, sometimes I'll be reading and the first example doesn't make any sense, or at least it starts the ball rolling. Like, well, I think it's like this, and I've noticed with books that have more examples, sometimes I think they need to chisel things into my granite like skull. Like, all right, didn't get in the first time. Okay, number 2, number 3. Okay, now I get it. But like I said, sometimes just having more experience with other RPGs, you can kind of get it. Like if you've read one initiative system and one RPG, you're probably going to figure out just about every other initiative system that's out there. But there's other subsystems sometimes, like Magic, for instance, where you might read like Ars Magica or Mage, and like your head explodes, compared to like some other games that you're used to. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's great. We have such a wealth of options. That's another way that the RPG world has really changed. Not to wax philosophical, but back when I started, 1977, 78, there was no other role-playing game that I knew of. I never heard of one. And I played nothing but D&D for like 15 years. One time I saw a book called Traveller, the Adventure Game, a box, and I was like, that seems different. But I never played it. And it wasn't until, honestly, I mean, except for like the other TSR games, Boot Hill, we played a little bit of that, Gamma World, ones like that. But that was all I ever tried. So it's wonderful now. You got such a wealth of options. There might even be a glut of RPG systems these days. When I see someone saying, I'm designing a new RPG game to come out, it's like, what can you possibly offer the RPG market that isn't covered already? Like,
especially the fantasy RPG market. There's like a truckload of RPGs for fantasy. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's that term fantasy heartbreaker that people throw out sometimes, where it's like you're trying to reinvent the wheel that's already been reinvented like 1,000 times.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just house rule. Find the system that's closest to what you want and house rule it, but whatever.
I mean, there is something fun about making your own system exactly the way you want it. So, I'm not going to say that that's not a good thing, but as far as the financial marketability of your little game, probably not too great if it's a fantasy game in this market.
No, that's an important distinction. There's absolutely joy, creativity, do whatever you want. But if you're doing it to try and sell and make money, and you're doing another fantasy game that's very much like every other fantasy, like, just don't.
Yeah, I mean, these days I think I think I've kind of given up on making my own system. I think I tried like 2 or 3 times, and I always got stuck at the magic system. Like whenever it came to making my own magic system, my brain wilted and died and ran out my nose. So I just always these days I just try to find a system. And I know a bunch of different systems, like a system that's close to what I'm going for with a campaign or close to a setting, and then it's like if it's like 90% to where I want it to be, I'll just house roll the last 10%. I'll just tweak it enough so that it fits the setting or fits the tone or genre or whatever I'm trying to go with, and just do the best I can with whatever systems I already possess.
Let me get your opinion on 2 related topics. One is, do you think that there is one generic system, because some systems are generic, D&D is not, for example. A generic GURPS is, where you can, is good for everything? Or do you feel that depending on the kind of game you want to run, certain systems are going to work well and certain systems are not going to work well? And I don't necessarily mean setting, but rather your intent. For example, in my opinion, if you wanted to run, say, an investigative game with a lot of investigation and digging, I'd want a system like World of Darkness or something that's very, very crunchy, lots and lots of skills and things like that, where people can really get into the nigglingness, right? Where if you want something that's sort of fast and lighthearted adventure, then you want a different kind of mechanic. So what do you feel about that? My point is that some people, they pick one system that's a generic system, and they say, I just use this for everything, and I think that's a bad idea.
Well, I've actually been of varying opinions about that over the years. For a long time, I was anti-generic system. I'd see these generic games, and I just would shake my head like, there's no way that game can handle everything. I've sort of changed my tune as far as that goes, though. Like my generic system of choice is basic role-playing or BRP, which is the D100, like Call of Cthulhu engine. And I have ran a lot of different genres and different types of campaigns with that. Well, I guess I've done a bunch of different one-shots. I've never actually ran a campaign of BRP, which is kind of strange. But in the past, I always thought, okay, if a setting comes out with a system attached to it, you should use that system because it's probably designed to emulate that setting the best. But I don't know. I've kind of changed my tune as far as that goes. I do think that there are some games that fit a setting or fit a genre or tone or whatever you're going for better than others. The trick is just to figure out which one that is. Like I've run a couple of different systems in the same setting before, like Firefly. Like I've ran BRP and Old World of Darkness. I've ran the Serenity RPG, and I find that for some reason I like World of Darkness and Firefly. I don't know. That's the 2 that I put together. But I don't know if I'd say it's a bad idea. I think if you have a generic system, there's a lot of work to make it fit everything. You have to figure out which optional rules to use, which skills to use, which ones you need to cross out and rename, maybe combine some skills if the skill list is too thick. Oh, look, it looks like we have a third
you got room for
talking
one
head.
Hello.
Yeah, come on in.
Hello.
Good morning.
Well,
Yeah, whatever time it is there.
Welcome. You can jump right in. You can just hit the ground. You can just hit the floor running. We were talking about generic systems versus specific systems, and how versatile generic systems can be versus using specific systems. So I agree with what you're saying there, Tim. A generic system I've been using lately is Fate, and it is really good. I really think that you could run anything in that fantasy. You could do pulp, you could do sci-fi, etc., with Fate. But if you wanted to do, it has to be an action-y kind of style you're going for. If you're going for a really deep, investigative type style, then I think Fate is a poor system to use for something like that. And that's kind of what I meant. Well, I don't deny that they can be used for a variety of settings. I think it really depends on what you... Well, just the mechanics... Because the mechanics aren't well suited to it. You know what I mean? If I was going to do a game where you had to do a lot of knowledge, where you were doing like CSI type work, I'd want something very crunchy, like a World of Darkness type system that had lots and lots of skills you could call upon. Where if I want to do something that's fast paced and actiony, that no. No, I fully admit I don't know a lot of systems. I was just trying to elicit opinions here on how I think certain systems, even generic ones, while they can suit a variety of settings, cannot necessarily suit a variety of styles. Feel free to weigh in.
True. Have you weighed in, Tim?
Yeah.
It's actually kind of funny. I mentioned BRP, and I must have summoned you. I was talking about how I use pretty much BRP as my generic system. So that's pretty funny that you popped in right at that moment. And how I've changed. I was sort of anti generic game for a long time. I thought that you had to have a specific system with a setting, and I've definitely changed my tune as far as that goes. So I think I'm more. I use generic systems, and then I also use specific ones. It really just comes down to what I want to try to do. I like to experiment with different games and different styles and genres and techniques. So
yeah, I pretty much agree with Rob. I mean, often I like to play the rules as written. So if I'm going to play something, I just want to be able to take the core book and go with it. And if the group likes it, we can expand it, or we can buy other supplements or something like that. I don't often have the time or the desire to take something like BRP or RuneQuest, like I'm doing now with my fantasy setting, and build everything. So if I want to do an investigation game, like he was saying, I don't know if I would go for a generic system where I know I'm going to find a one-line investigation skill or a one-line interrogation skill, and have that be the whole meat of of how that would be handled by the system.
Good point.
Okay, roll your investigation again.
Yeah, good point.
There's also something to be said for.
But at the same time, we seem to be fine with that for combat.
Yeah. I mentioned that it takes a lot of work sometimes to make a generic system and make it into what you need it to be for your setting of choice or genre. But there's also people like me who like to tinker, and even if a game was perfect, let's say it was exactly like what I wanted, I would have the just innermost desire to tweak something. I can't leave well enough alone with even like a quote unquote perfect system. I gotta get my wrench in there, rip something out and like put it back in the exact same way. But I was messing with it, so I don't know. I'm a tinkerer at heart. It could be a pro and a con, I think, as far as I go.
I totally get that. I find for myself, I just rather focus most of my energies on writing, creating NPCs, creating locations, creating things like that. I just get the most joy out of that. When I get to a point where I've written an adventure and now I've got to come up with some stat blocks, it's like, oh, this is the dull grunt work now I got to do, right? Yeah.
How about you, Anthony? Do you do a lot of writing? I'll let you go first.
I do and I don't. Like my style of running the game is that it's constantly running in the background. So the things that the NPCs are doing do get rolled out. So when I make the NPC the first time, I have to do the stat block then. Like when I'm full of the fires of creation of this guy. I have to do the stat block right then, or it will probably never get done, and that NPC will never make an appearance on stage, because without the stat block, I can't really use them. So wow. I kind of get trapped that way.
See, I think I probably do a lot less writing than both of you guys do. Often, a lot of my NPCs don't have stats. I just have sort of this mental image, maybe even more just pictures. Just I have a way that they look. Maybe even a way that they act, but I don't always necessarily put stats down. I also tend to.
Well, it depends on the game too.
Rules-like games.
Like in RuneQuest, unfortunately, there are a lot of stats. And but in Mech Warrior, like the new A Time of War, even though there's a ton of skills, there are character types, so I can literally grab an archetype and pair them up, and I'm done. I might have to tweak a skill value here and there, but I don't have to to do much writing. It's just, okay, this guy is a mech warrior of this level, kind of thing.
I think even when I detailed my NPCs out, probably the biggest campaign I did that with was my Vampire the Masquerade campaign, where I literally had like a 3x5 card, sometimes multiple 3x5 cards in each NPC. And I even in that game, I don't think I did stats. I just sort of like just kind of winged it. And if I did wing it and I came up with stats, I would write them down. So I guess I sort of build my NPCs as the campaign goes on. I have like a general idea first, maybe even like a one-sentence line if I'm being organized about it. But most of the time, I just sort of wing it. I do a lot of improv. I know when
We all do a lot of improv. Doing a lot of writing in advance doesn't mean you don't do a lot of improv.
Yeah, that's true. I guess for me, I just replace all that time of writing. I don't know. I don't do as much prep in that regard. It's like writing an entire adventure. I don't often do that.
No.
So.
Well,
I never do that part.
It's more like writing locations. Here's what's here and what's going on here. Here's what's here and what's going on here. The party is free to steer the oar, always, right? And then with NPCs, I get excited. Like recently, I had to write a group of 4 NPCs, and I was like, okay, Karl Walensky. He's a Polish guy. He's a 45 to 50. He was a former pilot. He's got salty brown hair. I love that stuff. I'll write a whole paragraph on that guy. Boom! I got my character. Bam! I got a voice for him. I know his age. If I don't write that down, I will never remember it. In 10 minutes, it's gone.
Yeah.
I got to do that. And then if I never use him, he'll come up. He'll show up somewhere else.
I think I always wish I was that organized, but I'm often not. I don't know. I'm guessing that Anthony's probably a lot more organized than I am too, as far as the campaigns.
Is he froze? I think he might be froze.
Anthony, you there?
You get a little. You need a little buffering thing going over his face. That's what we should have, so you'd know when someone's frozen.
Well, Anthony he's over in Korea, so that's a long ways away. So I'm guessing there's probably some internet problems between here and there.
Oh, now we got 2 Anthonys.
One of me will disappear in a moment.
Yeah, we know. When the server catches up.
I guess I just asked Anthony, how organized are you in your campaigns? You strike me as a pretty organized and well put together person. I always try to be organized, but it usually starts out as this semi-organized mess, and then it gets worse as the campaign goes on. But you?
Consistency is important to me, so I do take notes. I write recaps when I can. I'm happiest when the players are writing the recaps, because then I get to follow what was actually communicated. It's not my perception from the inside of the story, or from the inside of the scene. It's what they perceived that comes out in the recap. So that would be my favorite way. It also means I have to type less. I just spent the last 3 hours typing up yesterday's session. But once something has actually entered play, either behind the scenes or in the foreground, I like to know what that is. I like to have a record of it. Like an NPC name I had to come up with on the fly, or the fact that someone came from some town somewhere or speaks with a certain kind of accent. I have to get that written down, or I'll forget it, and then it'll bother me later.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I completely agree with that.
That lack of consistency is, from a player's perspective, I'm sure it gets annoying. Like, hey, that NPC is talking like has a Cockney accent today, and today he sounds like an Australian. Like, what's up with that, Tim?
That's right. That's just my accent slipping. I think you make a good point there about player perception, Anthony. One of the most interesting exercises I ever did was I had a game I ran in my own homebrew world for about 3 or 4 years now, and there was a city that the PCs had visited many, many times in various incarnations. And as a fun exercise one night, we finished early, I asked each person to describe to me what they thought the city looked like, because there had never been any pictures of it. And it was interesting how each one had a slightly different mental image of the city that they'd been in many times.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah. That's the joy, isn't it? I mean, you can be all around the table, all imagining the same events, but everybody's own mental palette is completely different.
I've actually been thinking a lot about that lately, and maybe I'll get your guys' take on it. I've been thinking about the idea of GMs actually describing things less. and here's my thought process on this, is that if the GM doesn't describe every nook and cranny of something, that gives the players the sort of blank canvas to sort of paint the image in their own minds. And I'm kind of wondering if that's a good thing or not, because I think at times I'm kind of lazy with description, but then I often talk to the players and they said, oh, this is like, I'll ask what an NPC looked like that I didn't describe all that well, and they have this very distinct image in their own minds that they came up with. So maybe we'll start with Anthony. Like, what do you think about the amount of description, and can the players fill in the blanks?
Well, I agree with what you're getting at. I mean, nature abhors the vacuum, right? In the old days when I was running Star Wars, like the D6 Star Wars, we didn't describe anything. We said there's a door, or there's a blast door, or there's a freighter, something like that, and everybody had the mental vocabulary from the movies to just fill all that in. But when I make a homebrew world, how can they possibly know what I'm talking about unless I give them something? But what kind of thing? Like, is it enough to say it's a large door, or it's a wooden door, or it's an NPC, a noble with a limp? When should I cut it off? And so for this particular project I'm doing now with RuneQuest, I like to restrict myself to culture and material, so that they know where someone comes from, and if it's the first time we've encountered someone from that nation or that race, I'll give them some ideas. But I want their imagination to be creating this world, so I cut myself off as often as I can, and sometimes it works and sometimes it hasn't.
So you've obviously thought about this before then, about how much description to give, how much is too much, how much is just enough, how much is too little.
Well, I've been wrestling with two things. One, I don't get to play very much. The last couple of years, face-to-face gaming has been restricted, so I get kind of excited when we get together, and I don't want to be the guy who's talking the most. So I thought about it from that perspective. But the other thing is, I don't get to have too many conversations in English outside of the classroom, and those are all directed, and they aren't really interaction. They're eliciting certain responses or training people to do things. So I find that when I'm actually sitting at the table, the vocabulary that I want, like the name of a gemstone or a type of wood or something, I've lost it all. I have to think like for a good 5 minutes to bring that up out of the depths of my mind. So I'm hesitant about getting into heavy description because I just might run out of ammunition and be like, it's wood. Blue.
That's interesting that English is kind of fallen out of, you don't use it every day, so it's sort of falling a little bit by the wayside, I guess, huh?
Yeah, well, like all those great D&D words we learned pouring over the Dungeon Master's Guide when we were kids, they're all gone.
Balachatherium. Kudos if you get the reference.
What about you, Rob? What do you think about description?
I've given a lot of thought to this, and over the years I've learned to, like Anthony suggests, do less. I think the best analogy I've ever come up with for this is, I feel like I'm director of a play, and I don't like the term director, but what I mean is, I say, okay, the stage setting for this scene is a Kansas farm, and there's a big wheat field, and over there's a farmhouse in the corner. And that's all, and it's a summer and it's a sunny day. That's all the players need. And when a player takes his turn, I do not want him to say to me, "Is there a tractor over in the field?" No, just tell me there's a tractor over in the field. Just tell me there's a barn house and there's 2 horses running around outside it. Add anything you want that's consistent with the parameters I've already established.
Right.
Go for it, because then that's less description I got to come up with. So now everybody is painting the scene. I'm just putting up the scaffolding, and they're filling in all the middle. It's great. It's the least work. It's the most collaborative.
I've been trying to do this as more too.
There is a problem though. The problem is, if you're running a game, or if you have a scene where you need to put clues in, oh, here's an important object, right? Then all of a sudden you give a whole bunch of description, and like, boop, all their ears go up, flags go off, right? So I struggle with how you blend those two.
There's like a giant arrow pointing down at the thing.
That's right. Notice this. Notice this. Right. But
like
Anthony also made a good point. Anthony also made a really good point that the familiarity with the setting helps. If it's set in the Star Wars universe, if it's set in real Earth, it's easier.
Yeah. One thing I like to have players do is, like, as an option to just adding in, like, the two horses cavorting in the field, or a detail about, like, what something's made out of, is to ask each other questions, like, so they engage each other. Like, can you see what's inside the barn? And they're not asking me; they're asking each other.
Excellent.
And then they collaborate on what should or shouldn't be there that way, or is the door made out of metal, or is it that kind of thing.
That's excellent.
When that happens, or do you give them sort of like I guess you don't do as much in face-to-face kind of games, but do you have any like body language that you do when that happens? Like, do they look towards you to, is it okay to describe this thing, or do you guys have that set up beforehand, like a social contract?
Social contract.
I like to have it be organic. Like the first time it appears, it's usually after a conversation we've had about different techniques or options that I'm open to. And then, one of the guys that I play with most often, we did a hangout a couple of months ago, Lorne. We'll have a conversation if certain techniques aren't appearing, and then he'll try them in game, and just body language. I'll be nodding my head or whatever as he does it, and then people just pick it up naturally.
I've been finding in my game that it's sort of a process. I've been giving away more narrative control, trying to be sort of like that sort of cheerleader to do that with description as well. Sometimes I'll bounce questions back at the player, like, no, you do that,
you tell me.
As we go, it sort of like gets easier, I think. We're more comfortable with it. It just sort of flows, like you said, kind of like an organic fashion. Like, people have seen how previous sessions have gone, and they're like, oh, okay, so, I think we talked a little bit about that, and they said that they'd rather now go too far and have me reel it in a little bit than not go far enough. And I said, that's great. I'd like to see that. It's kind of cool to see an experiment start. Like, here's my intention, and then see how long it actually takes to get there. And we've run, I think, 11 sessions now, so it's taken some time for the players to get comfortable with that.
Has it gone in any directions that you didn't expect that you like?
I think many directions, especially with like NPCs that get brought up by the characters. Weird. I kind of whenever I run a game, it's more sandboxy. So even like in a traditional like framework, I kind of go with the flow. So as far as that goes, I'm very comfortable with how the game goes in very strange directions, and I get excited to see that. It's cool to see, like, what do you guys think is interesting, and that's where you go to. That's what you suggest. Okay, then I know this is what you guys think is interesting, so I'm going to flesh out that area or that direction or that thing you're talking about, and it's fun.
Yep. Even though I like GMing more than I like playing, my favorite time when I'm a GM is when I don't have to say anything for 20 or 30 consecutive minutes, and I'm just watching a play. That's the best. I'm just awesome. Smiling and watching.
I like that a lot.
My current group is pretty good with that sort of campfire downtime sort of talking.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There really isn't a ton of stuff going on, and it's great to just sit back and like, I don't have anything to do here. I'm just going to sit and enjoy this. This is great.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a play.
Yeah. Well, also guiding that conversation, if necessary, into a recap so that someone will actually say what they think is going on out loud, and then that's sparking a conversation, and then you see the light come on, like, holy crap, I know it. I know it's Mr. Jenkins wearing the rubber mask this week, not
I know what I got away with it too.
I think sometimes people have to hash that stuff out to have it make sense. Like, well, there was this weird piece over here, the puzzle, a weird piece over here, and as they speak it out loud, they start to form the whole puzzle, and you just watch that light bulb go off, and yeah, that is a very cool experience.
I did a little experiment once with Player Agency. There was no characters, there was no game. We were just having a conversation, and I was with some players. I said, okay, so you have whatever character, doesn't matter. It's a modern world. You go into a fancy French restaurant, and it's fairly busy. And that was the only description I gave them. And then they played out a scene where they filled in what the restaurant looked like, who the NPCs in the restaurant were. I didn't do any of it. And you really can take it that far. That's all you need is a little framework, and they can go nuts.
But as you mentioned before, with a mystery, then you have to retain a certain amount of control in order to provide them with that experience.
This is why I think when you write, you always need to write with an intention. What am I trying to accomplish with this? If I want to make it a mystery, then I have to change my whole style. I have to reel in the player agency so that when I put down clues, they aren't obvious, right? You have to. I like to write that way. I always like to try and write with a purpose.
In my current campaign, I told the guys that I want there to be some mystery to these two alien species, and that in that instance, I was going to take a more traditional approach to things. But as far as like when they're on the ship or on like a planet or moon or something, that's where it kind of goes off into whatever you guys want to do. I'm fine with, and it's sort of a strange dance at times, like trying to go back and forth like different gears. But it's working out like a charm so far. So
long ago, when I was running World of Darkness games a lot, I guess just before Mage came out, first edition Mage. So we had been running a lot of Vampire, and we had started running a lot of Werewolf, and we were waiting for Mage to finally come. It was those days. And I was really into narrative style gaming at that point, trying to embrace that, writing out the stories, targeting the merits and flaws of the characters and things, so that certain things would happen. Like, I was really into the art of, you're not going to believe what's going to happen tonight kind of stuff. In those cases, I tried to do mysteries completely differently. Like, there would be something happen, like a murder or a theft, and I had no idea who did it.
I love it.
And they would investigate, and as they investigated, based on their speculation, because
they're giving you ideas.
Yeah, that particular group was willing to talk through openly, right? There was a couple of guys who would play their thoughts, very close to their vest, and not let the game master know anything that they were thinking ever.
Yeah.
But I got pretty good at reading them too, and that was the fun for me. It wasn't as much fun as playing it out simulation style, so I moved away from it. But it was something to say, okay, yeah. You find blood spatter on the wall, definitely, and it looks like it came from a desert eagle. Sure.
Yeah, I think we've all done that as GMs. A player says something, and in the Wheel Death game I ran, one of the players said, "I wonder if that book's evil." I'm like, "Oh, it is now." That's a great idea. I should have thought of that.
Yeah, the story is much better if it's evil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I did want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. I think this is actually the first time that we've had a back and forth conversation. Am I right?
What, really?
I think so. I think just like the Gentleman Gamer, the first time we talked together, he's like, "What? No, we've had to talk before this." I'm like, no, I don't think we have. And me and Rob were talking about that sort of connectedness that YouTube gives us, that internet forums and other types of internet conversation don't. But yeah, I want you to introduce yourself and your channel to my subscribers.
If there's one person who doesn't know you already, I'd be surprised. But go ahead.
You never know.
I think Tim has like thousands of subscribers. I think there's thousands of people who don't know me.
I think you underestimate your prolificness and popularity, but go on.
All right, so my name is Anthony Boyd. I post under the name of Runeslinger. My channel is Casting Shadows. It's been, I guess, more active in the last 2 years than it was before, when I used it kind of as a video digest. And I tend to focus on old games and some new.
I know
it's a very good, intelligent channel. Watch it.
Yeah, I greatly enjoy every time you post a video. It's always like, oh, what's he talking about today? And you always seem so intelligent and just knowledgeable about whatever you're talking about. It's like, wow, I wish I could sound like that. I think I kind of sound like this RPG buffoon that comes out and dances in front of the camera sometimes. You know?
No way, man.
But I guess there's something to that. So.
Embrace the power of editing.
Nah, yeah, that's just part of my style. It's like, yeah, just hit record and they can deal with it or just not watch.
I sense a pattern there, Tim. I don't really prep anything. I just put down a couple of notes, and whatever happens, we'll just see.
Yeah, I guess I kind of do my my videos the way that I run a game, from the hip. And I think the only time I do more prep for videos is when I do a review, and then I'm like crazy, like I got like 30 pages of notes about the RPG in question.
Man, reviews are hard.
Yes, they are. They are, especially when want to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to make notes if you want to be thorough. Otherwise, you forget stuff.
Well, there's that, and I just don't feel comfortable unless I've really played it. Tetsubo takes notes too.
He must, but I don't know, man. He just goes off of the table of contents, and that man has a memory, I think, that just sucks things in like a sponge. He seems to just be able to read something and be able to crank it out.
But Tim, you're like the Iron Man of the RPG Brigade, are you not? Aren't you like the longest living poster?
I don't know. I think that's a good question as far as how many people first started and if they're still here or not. I kind of picture myself not like an Iron Man, but a slow plodding turtle, maybe like a big snapping turtle.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you Master Oogway?
I think Iron Man might be appropriate here, Tim. I mean, you were talking about doing this convention where you ran 8 sessions or something in the course of a weekend.
Yeah,
I would have a coronary.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to conventions, I definitely I'm a glutton for punishment. I sign up and and often I have like 8 players at each table, at least for the OSR and Rules Light type games.
My brain would be mush.
My body is mush by the time I'm done. I guess sometimes if I don't sleep well, by that last session, it gets really surreal and out there. And
that might be a good position to be in for a game.
Sleep deprivation, the RPG.
Yeah, I tend to run very sort of out there games on the last day or so, where it's like that my mindset kind of fits the genre and setting that I'm going for.
Your brain is a sandbox at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the last one I ran, thrash metal superheroes of the apocalypse, and that was very silly, gonzo. People were quoting metal lyrics to cast spells, So it was very bizarre, and I was just laughing hysterically, and I think that it was kind of contagious at sometimes.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Michael Barnicott, Barnesy, Black Barnes, he saw some of the games that I ran there, and he was. I think the one thing he said to me that made a lot of sense is like, Tim, everyone was having a blast. I saw one girl crying from laughing. He's like, I don't think anyone's ever done that in my games before. I said, well, I do different things. I have serious games. I have silly games. I have I don't know. I'm not like a one type of GM. I like to mix and match. Like I'll have people that play in my serious Tecmo game that'll come sit down at that thrash metal game. Like, wow, this is like so different. How the hell are you running this in such a different way? I said, I don't know. It's just who I am, I guess.
That's what I was referring to. Writing with a purpose, right? What are you trying to accomplish with this, whatever you're writing?
That's why, Tim, you are the game master.
I think my window of opportunity to record today is coming to the end is nigh, I guess. My wife should be home with my son.
Oh, no.
So I want to go around and have sort of like a last thoughts or whatever. How about we start with Anthony, since you joined late? Any random thoughts you want to throw out there for today?
Well, let's see. My last thoughts are I really wish I had heard what happened at the beginning of the Hangout, and looking forward to seeing what I missed. And glad I was able to join in at the end. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for speaking with me, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm glad to finally talk to you.
Same here. I've watched tons of your videos, and we've certainly shared a lot of comments, Anthony, but this is the first time I've ever got to talk to you face-to-face, so I'm grateful for that. Also, I just want, since it's our Brigade Day, I got to say that online gaming has just opened up such a world of opportunity to me. Yeah. I'm so happy for it. The town I live in has like 300 people. It's hard to find gamers. And out there, I mean, there's so many gamers. You can find gamers that play the kind of styles you prefer. It's fantastic. I couldn't be happier. So the Brigade really is what launched that made it. I'm in Nova Scotia, Canada.
I'm from there, so I was curious what.
Oh, excellent. I was born in Toronto. I'm about 100 miles from Halifax. I'm about halfway between Halifax and Spring Hill, if that helps you. I'm about 100 miles from Halifax. 100 miles from. Oh, excellent. Oh, I've been to Amherst many times. That's very cool. So, small world.
Small. So small. But now I'm on the opposite side of it.
Yeah, you're in Korea. So I'm really, really grateful. I played a game the other night. There was a guy in Denmark. There was a guy in Wellington, New Zealand. Me in Nova Scotia, and Alex in Maine, and somebody else in Virginia, Steve in Virginia. So wild, eh? Just love it. I love it. And it's because of Brigade and people like Tim that this is all possible. So I'm, again, very grateful.
That's right.
This
May
video
the
makes me
force be
think
with
that
him always.
Thank you, sir. Obi-Wan, Anthony. But these videos kind of make me think that I wish more people did this. For a while, I think I was the main proponent to push these sorts of videos. Like, hey, I was even trying to do these videos before Google Hangouts were a thing. I was trying to do them with Skype, and they're lame as hell because you just see my fat face the whole time, talking to a voice. But I think they're great. Like you just said, Rob, you've never talked to Anthony. I've never talked to Anthony, and it's like, it's possible. Why don't we do it more? I guess it's just you need a little bit of organization and being
time zones.
Time zones and on at the same time. But they're a lot of fun. I mean, we didn't really even plan what we're going to talk about today, and we just sort of like just talked, and it's kind of fun.
Cool.
Always interesting.
I think I've got one planned for the middle of the week coming up with Andre and Brian Gregory, if we can get our schedules to coordinate.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to see you guys talk. It'd be cool.
Cool. Look forward to that.
But I guess everyone out there, I think we have a very strong online community. I think we have a lot of players to recruit from if you want to do some online gaming. And don't be afraid to talk to people. Just send someone a message if you're like, hey Anthony, you want to be in my game? And like he said, he never gets to play, so if he can make it happen, I'm sure he will.
Right on. And I'll reply with leg out.
All right, guys. I think that'll have to do for today.
Happy May the 4th, everyone.
If you guys want to keep talking, do your own video.
I'm gonna get lunch.
My arm's getting tired.
All right, guys. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.
Happy day.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.